So, start fresh right here, whoever's in the edit. Who's looking to spend some money?
I'm only burning my half.
You know, right now, a lot of people keep asking me, should I buy a PS4 or wait for a PS5? And my answer is just go get a Switch.
Check the number and dial again.
With the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 coming out hopefully later this year, provided we don't have any pushbacks due to certain major world health issues. A question that I've been having a lot of people ask me is it okay to buy a PS4 or Xbox One right now, or should I just wait for the next gen system? And for a lot of people, I think the answer is a pretty easy wait for next gen, but there's a little more complexity to this question I think is worth looking into.
You have no idea what you're walking into.
What are you doing?
First off, let's just talk about why you might be interested in grabbing a current-gen system with next-gen ones on the horizon. And to be honest, when we're talking about this, we're mostly talking about PS4. There are some reasons why you might want to get an Xbox One right now with the Series X coming out, and I'll talk about that, but really, most of the people that are asking me this question are talking about PS4 specifically, and the main reason why is first-party exclusives.
You think I'm weak because I'm not like you.
You do not know everything, boy.
Both of these systems have a lot of great games coming out over the next year, but really when it comes to exclusive titles that you can't find anywhere else, PlayStation has a few more to talk about and really get excited for. Specifically, Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is a timed exclusive. It is going to come to other stuff later. We're just not sure when or what just yet. And for definitely PlayStation specifically, Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, though there is some light rumblings that those might get PC ports later. Now, of these three, honestly, I actually think the one that's been contributing the most to this question is Final Fantasy VII Remake. Not because it has necessarily the most hype around it, but I think it's the kind of game that's attracting a lot of people who didn't go ahead and buy a current-gen system. With Ghost of Tsushima and Last of Us Part 2, there's a good chance that you're just a fan of stuff that is coming out on current-gen systems, you're a fan of developers that are making stuff for the PS3, PS4, Sony games in general, and so likely you've already bought one of these systems. But Final Fantasy VII Remake is, well, a remake of a very popular game that came out back on the PS1. So I think there's a pretty healthy audience out there of people that love that game specifically and are really interested in trying out the remake. But because it's so late in the PS4's life cycle, it's kind of hitting them with this question of, well, should I just go ahead and play this in March, or should I wait to instead get a PS5 at the end of the year? It doesn't hurt that in general, all three of these games have also built up a lot of hype over the last couple weeks between Final Fantasy VII launching a demo, Last of Us is getting a TV show adaptation which is bringing up talks about the game again, and Ghost of Tsushima finally got an actual confirmed release date and a bunch of new trailers that it's going to be coming out on June 2nd. Xbox, on the other hand, there's not really a ton of rushed interest to get it for any games right now. There are some cool games, including stuff that just came out like Ori and the Will of the Wisps, but because of the way that Microsoft handles exclusives, all of these games are also available on PC, so oftentimes people have that alternative. And really, even Microsoft themselves have very heavily focused on the Series X being the hot new thing and aren't really drawing too much attention to why you should buy an Xbox One right now. The only thing really going in favor of that argument is the interesting fact that the Series X is going to support letting you play their version of a game even if you bought it on the Xbox One. A really good example of this is Cyberpunk 2077, which is coming out before the Series X launches for the Xbox One, and if you end up buying an Xbox One to play that game and then you get an Xbox Series X later, you'll be able to play the higher performance version built for Series X on that system, even though you bought it for the Xbox One in the first place. So there's a little bit more of a sort of easy transition going on if you just go out and buy an Xbox One right now, because anything you buy and play, you're still gonna get the better version later on the Series X. There's no worry about having to rebuy stuff. But even then, I don't think people are having necessarily as big of a push right now to buy a current gen system with that on the way. So going back to the PS4, is it a good idea to buy one right now instead of waiting for a PS5? Kind of. There's two main things I think people need to consider, and that's just with the information we have on hand right now, which is how patient are you and how much are you willing to spend? Because something that really affects this is the fact that since PS5 is coming out, PS4s are seeing some pretty noticeable price drops. You can get a PS4 Pro for a little over $300 right now. You can get regular PS4 Slims for about $250, and that's including game bundles where you can pick up some titles like Spider-Man and other exclusives you might have missed out on. So they are selling at better prices. That being said, those price drops are definitely going to continue. Once PS5 comes out, PS4 Pros and Slims are definitely going to go down even more, especially in the case of bundles like this. So Even if you're considering the thing like, oh, it's a deal right now, well, honestly, that deal's only gonna get better.
I heard you're having second thoughts.
The really big issue is when you pair these dropping prices with the other important question of how patient of a person are you? Because especially if you're looking at a game like Final Fantasy VII Remake, well, that comes out in early April. So the question is, do you buy a new system to play it right away and experience it and be a part of the conversation and all that fun stuff? Or can you wait potentially 6 or 7 months to buy a PS5 and experience then, along with all the upcoming games that are coming out for that system? I, for one, can't wait to find out anything about the PS5. Just like any extra detail at this point. Something. Anything. Please. And honestly, that big of a time gap can make it very tempting for someone to just go ahead and buy it right now, especially if this is a singular game that you are very excited for. And the biggest problem really is that there's still so many unknowns about the PS5 itself. While we've learned a lot of things about Series X, PlayStation has been very quiet about the PS5. We know some general spec things about it. We know it's gonna have an SSD. We know what kind of target they're having for graphics, but at the end of the day, there are a lot of blanks left. And two very important ones when it comes to this question of buying a system right now is how much is it gonna cost, and when exactly is it gonna release? You know, I know it's definitely not gonna happen, but how insane would it be if PS5 actually did support all PlayStations? Like, the 3 is way too big of a nightmare to do emulation, but really, imagine. That'd be really cool. How soon the PS5 comes out has a pretty big impact on how long you're willing to wait. And the thing is, we just really don't know. I mean, oftentimes you can kind of talk to and point to past releases and be like, oh yeah, it's more than likely gonna be a November release, maybe in October, possibly even as crazy early as a September. But due to certain other issues going on in the world right now that I can't use specific words for because otherwise YouTube might not share this video as easily, there's a lot of uncertainty for a lot of people about whether or not they're going to actually be able to produce enough systems in time and might have to push them back. And to top that off, even if it does come out sooner, or especially if it gets pushed back, we also don't know how much money the system's going to cost. Everyone's throwing out numbers they think are likely, more or less. It's going to be $500, $600. Some people are even throwing out way higher numbers like $800 or even a full grand. But without knowing what that number is, how much you're willing to spend right now on an older system is a lot tougher. Because if it's going to be something outrageously expensive and you still want to buy it, well then you want to save up every penny you have. On the other hand, if it is something that's a lot more affordable, that might push you into being more okay with buying a system right now that you'll just trade in or sell right before to go up to that new system. At the end of the day, whether or not it's worth buying a current gen system right before next gen is a personal choice that's really dependent on your own comfort level. How much you're willing to spend, what your circumstances are, how much you really want to play a game right away. It all really comes down to you. My personal recommendation though, just as kind of a general rule, wait for the PS5. If you have the patience for it, it's going to be able to play all these games and more, and at the end of the day, you're just going to save yourself money by waiting to buy just that one. On the other hand, if you just can't wait at all, don't go all out and buy a current gen PS4 Pro. Don't spend a ton of money on the nicest one out there unless you can find an amazingly crazy deal. Just get whatever cheapest baseline option out there, even if it's used, and use that as a way to play those games for now and then experience them in the better pro style ways on that PS5 when it releases. As for Xbox, yeah, just really wait for Series X. Again, if there's some stuff you really just can't wait on that's multi-platform like Resident Evil or something, cool, go ahead, but honestly, just wait for Series X. Or, you know, just build a PC. Guys, I know we're supposed to be shooting this video right now, but I just read that Reggie's gonna start working for GameStop, and I don't even... What?